Trevor, thank you so much for joining us here at RiskMinds. Top of everyone's agenda here this week, and indeed when CROs were polled in one of the sessions, top concern, cybersecurity. I'm sure you're not surprised by that, but what are guys like you doing to mitigate for that and coping with that challenge?
Sure. So I like to coin the phrase the new major C-suite of risks: cyber conduct, crime, client change, and so forth. And certainly cyber is right at the top. And I think the big difference with the C-suite of risks compared to the traditional classic risks like credit and operational risk, capital liquidity, is it's just not as evolved and mature as those classic risks. So our big job is to fast track that. The fourth industrial revolution, the whole focus on digital and technological, the explosion of all of it, is obviously raising the exposure around cyber to unprecedented levels. And what might be good practice this year, next year is just inadequate. That obviously is the pace of change with the whole digital story.
It's evolving very fast, and you've got to develop new frameworks to cope with that.
Absolutely. So I think, on the one hand, it's around a lot of the good principles and governance and frameworks and practices in a broader enterprise risk management framework that have been successful for those classic risks like credit and market risk. We need to ensure we have for cyber as well, and certainly have dedicated cyber risk management frameworks. And certainly there's lots to do and lots that can be done. And so a comprehensive cyber resilience program, because it's all about cyber resilience as opposed to just cyber security these days. And there's a whole lot you can do. Obviously on the technology side, there's many things one can do. I think the key challenge though is to prioritize and to ensure that you're focusing on the crown jewels of the organization. You understand and you've agreed what those crown jewels are, and that they are receiving the predominant investment and urgency in terms of implementing the enhancements that you need to do.
And it's got to be innate and ingrained in the whole business, not just CROs thinking about this, but all employees need to be super aware.
Absolutely. And I think certainly in my time when I stepped into this role as CRO about 5 years ago, the talk around cyber was only IT. In fact, everyone looked in our organization at that stage at the CIO, and CRO was quite silent. So I've certainly sought to change that, and it was really driving an agenda that said, managing cyber is so much more than just technology, very much on the people and the staff side. And I think, in our program, we clearly distinguish between sort of the external threat, which is predominantly obviously hackers trying to get into your systems, but then the internal threat is actually greater, and the internal threat comes from your own staff. People who might be negligent or just reckless, who have authorized access into your systems, don't have adequate passwords, and are negligent in terms of clicking onto all the phishing attacks or malware attacks that are just increasing and thereby exposing the organization. So the emphasis on awareness and being cyber smart across the organization is easily as important than all the technology side of things. And then the third dimension, which is receiving a lot of focus now, is third parties. So you've got all these vendors, even your regulators and your external auditors who have access into your systems and your data, and if their cybersecurity isn't great, you are indirectly impacted. So a big focus on that. And I guess
that's a big challenge when you're dealing with outside parties who you can have influence over, I guess, but you aren't designing their structures, are you? So no. It's a key relationship and partnership you've got to build.
Yeah, it absolutely is. What we've sought to try and do on the third party side is to try and apply a lot of the same practices and principles as we do for AML with our clients. So just as with AML, one needs to go through proper onboarding process, one needs to have proper risk rating systems of your clients, do proper due diligence, have adverse media, etc., etc. apply those same principles and practices into your vendors. And so when we talk about in AML around KYC, know your client, you need to KYV, know your vendor.
It sounds to me like your role as a CRO is evolving so quickly and has changed so much, even since the financial crash in 2008. The past decade's been an incredible one of change for you.
Yes.
And you've had to adapt as well.
No, absolutely, and that sort of goes back to my opening point around the C-suite. So, things like credit and market risk, traditional operational risk, capital liquidity, Basel II, Basel III, all remain very important, but now you have the cyber, you have conduct, you have enormous change with the fourth industrial revolution, changing business models.
You've got to have the very brightest minds that you're employing to cope with all that, presumably, as well. So it's an interesting dynamic for who you recruit and who you look to with those sort of different...
Absolutely. So the workforce of the future is changing. Where in the past we perhaps employed, accountants and lawyers, obviously, and quants. Now it's about data scientists and engineers. So a completely different category of skills is required, and there's just not enough of these people. So I think now going forward, one has to have a strong focus on digitization of risk. And certainly we run a program within Nedbank called DigiRace, which is about digitizing risk audit and compliance across the enterprise. And really it's a combination of that with obviously your people to get to the desired outcome, because just not enough resources on its own. And it's really around ensuring that the resources you have are focusing on the work that we're really employed to do and getting a lot of the more manual routine work digitized, and that frees up time for your people to focus where they should be.
It sounds like you've got to be very nimble to stay ahead of all of this as a CRO. Does something like RiskMinds, where you come together as a group, a global group, give you a chance to sort of share those ideas, insights, concerns? Is it helpful to you in that sense?
It's absolutely helpful, and I think the great benefit of RiskMinds is it is international, so you get a good spread of insights from people in the industry, regulators, consultants, and so forth, and across people coming from all over the world. So I think it's really useful. There's a lot you learn here, but also what's helpful is just to confirm that you're not missing anything. So it's important to understand what's on other people's agenda and compare that to your agenda and see if you've got any gaps.
Great, thank you so much for joining us, Trevor. It's been great to talk to you. Thanks for sharing your insights.
You're very welcome. Thank you.